Hi, this is PubShorts episode 9. I want to hold your hand. My name is Dr. KK. I'm the innovation manager at Trinka and Enago, and PubShorts is a weekly show where we cover all the news from the field of academic publishing and language technology. And I have with me Tony. Hi, Tony.
Hey, KK, how you doing today?
I'm doing okay. Could you briefly introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Tony O'Rourke. I'm Vice President for Partnerships here at Enago, and I
Well, unfortunately, Tony, we have an audio issue with your thing, with your connection, but that's okay. I'll hope that we will overcome this. So, this episode is titled "I Want to Hold Your Hand" because of partnerships. Tony, you are involved in partnerships for Inago. So, are you excited to talk about some of the stories that we are talking about?
I'm excited to talk about one or two of them. Yes,
Okay, great. So let's start.
without question.
Let's start talking about the first story, which is from STM Publishing News. It is about partnerships. It's about Wiley. So, Tony, would you recommend STM Publishing News newsletter as one of the sources for people who are interested in keeping up with publishing?
Oh, if you have an interest in what's going on in the STM publishing world specifically,
Yeah.
I'd absolutely recommend it. It's a free newsletter, and it captures pretty much every major story that comes through.
Right. So the story on STM Publishing News is titled "Wiley to Reveal Key Insights and AI-Driven Innovations at Frankfurt Book Fair." So this the main things that they are promising to share were findings from a survey of 5,000 researchers revealing both high expectations and ethical concerns around AI and their efforts to integrate, the Wiley's efforts to integrate AI into the publishing process and focusing on safe, ethical, and productive use of AI. And the interesting news story about the launch of Gen AI for Dummies at the book fair. So, Tony, let me quickly ask you, have you seen the book and what do you think about the overall story?
I haven't seen the Gen AI for Dummies book, but I've actually used the for Dummies books in other areas
All
in
right.
the past. So I think it's a natural next step in that series.
Right. So the second related story is the actual press release from Wiley itself, and the it is titled "Wiley launches new partnership innovation program to deliver AI advantages for researchers and practitioners." So I'll quickly read out my notes. This initiative will foster collaborations between Wiley and innovative companies to develop AI applications aimed at enhancing scientific research. The program responds to researchers' needs for specialized AI tools and guidance on responsible AI use. And they have already announced the first partner, which is Potato. And this will kickstart the initiative with AI powered research tools focused on improving science reproducibility and research protocol developments. And Wiley is inviting more partners, especially those in life sciences, health science, food science, engineering, chemistry, materials, and veterinary medicine. So, Tony, what do you think about this? You are the partnerships person at Inago. What do you think about this?
I think very smart for an organization as forward thinking as Wiley to be reaching out to the industry in this way. Very smart.
Did you have a chance to take a look at Potato? The
I haven't looked at the potato. No, have
Yeah,
you?
so I have. It is a research assistant platform primarily for life sciences, biology. It helps researchers create protocols using Gen AI. It has some literature management functionalities. It is a good start. It's exciting, but it seems limited to biology and life sciences. So let's
But I
hope.
think isn't that kind of the point though? What they're trying to do is bring together sort of best of breed tools in lots of different of subdisciplines.
Yes,
So what may be fantastic in one area may be limited in other areas. So I think it's really smart thing for them to do.
right. So I mean, I'm hoping that there'll be more partners and the tools will be, broader for application
Oh,
purposes,
I've,
etc.
I've,
in the
I've got
future.
no doubt there will be more partners.
Yeah.
Absolutely no doubt.
All right. So moving on to the next story, which is from Bishop Blog, and it is titled "An Open Letter Regarding Scientific Reports," which is a big journal which has a lot of traffic. So this story is about a group of meta scientists and sleuths expressing concerns over integrity of the peer review process in scientific reports, which is a Springer Nature journal. And these scientists or the sleuths argue that the flawed papers, including one flagged for containing tortured phrases indicative of plagiarism, and these highlight serious editorial issues, and they call for urgent measures. So this is from Journalology 97, the issue 97, the newsletter by James Butcher. And as per the newsletter, Scientific Reports has published about 22,000 research articles, more than any journal in the last year, and it is expected to be higher this year. And it is basically a sign of the industrialization of the research publishing, and has many side effects, unfortunate ones, including the stress on of the article is on the devaluing of the role of the editor. And this article argues for more practice of editors and fewer number of editors. And as per the articles and as per the newsletter, the number of editors in Scientific Reports and Frontiers of Neuroscience are 13,000 and 10,391 respectively. Now, the article argues for editors to be named in each published paper, like PLOS and Frontiers already do, and to have editors take more ownership in the articles that are published. So, Tony, are you surprised at some of these numbers? I was initially.
No, not at all. I've been following Scientific Reports, it used to be called mega journals, quite closely. It doesn't surprise me at all that they're having they're getting the volume. We all know that scientific submissions to scientific journals are growing, and some of these bigger journals just have a bit more reach than others.
Right. So, do you also agree with the blog stance that there should be fewer editors, and the editors should be they have a learning curve and they'll eventually improve in picking up?
I'm not sure. I'm all for transparency, but I think there is a time when there has to be a certain amount of discretion demonstrated by reviewers. I mean, look in the instance of journals that have introduced anonymized review, so that it reduce bias in peer review. So I think, yes, I'm all for collaboration, but I'm not sure whether the way to go is to reduce the number of editors.
Interesting. All right, I'm moving on to the next story, which is a story regarding the Copyright Clearance Center. It is again an announcement. The story is from in the field of research integrity. So, CCC announces collaboration with Morressier to address research integrity. So, I'll quickly read out my notes. So, CCC and Morressier are partnered to create a researcher identification and validation service. This is for researchers to be identified while they submit a manuscript. The service assigns globally unique persistent identifiers, or otherwise referred to as PIDs, to researchers, streamlining the identification process for publishers. So I guess one classical example of a PID would be an ORCID ID, or ORCID, and Morressier is Yes. Morressier is integrating the beta version of this service into its Integrity Manager platform, ensuring early adoption in research integrity workflows. And the service leverages a broad range of data sources to disambiguate researchers and validate their affiliations and connections. And it also mentions, and this I'll let Tony speak, but there's a very interesting map of metadata that I'd like to show you. It also mentions the state of scholarly metadata and the related map, and that this is the first time that I was introduced to these. So, Tony, your thoughts on the story before I share the map?
Not specifically on the story itself. I mean, again, here's an example of two very smart organizations. CCC have a long history in wanting to provide consistent, reliable data to its publisher partners. Years ago, they bought a company called Ringgold, which used to do institutional disambiguation, which still does that, in fact. So this makes absolute sense to want to be able to offer that kind of disambiguation service for authors as well.
Right. So the coolest thing that I think this is the coolest thing that I discovered this week is this metadata map that CCC have published. It's basically a horizontal scrolling map which shows you where all metadata is captured and what are the challenges. So it goes, I mean, it is vertically, even though you can scroll horizontally, there are I think 4 groups of stakeholders: researcher, institution, funder, and publisher. And it is from the stage of idea development to preparation, proposal for grants, then the actual research and authoring of the manuscript, and eventual publication. So it is a wonderful resource that if anybody is interested, they should please check this. I'll share the link in the description. Tony, have you had a chance to take a look at this?
I hear this again. It's an example of what a smart organization they are.
Excellent. So I hope everybody, takes makes use of this and the scholarly metadata report that they've
Yeah,
published.
this is thought through by some very bright people,
Right.
who understand the industry and understand the workflow. So I'd urge everyone to refer to it.
Right. Moving on to the next one, again, a story from Research Integrity. This is an announcement from published in STM Publishing News. It is titled Signals launches free research integrity submission evaluation platform to help restore trust in research. I think we all need some trust to be restored. So this platform is available to all publishers and will integrate to editorial workflows. And it's a free version of their paid subscription version. And the larger publishers can access enhanced services through the subscription model. And I've tried to research on this, but the only information that I have is that the free option offers research integrity evaluations and key signals for all all submitted manuscripts. I do not know what exactly that means, and obviously publishers can offer the paid version. So this is a step in the right direction. I tried to make sense out of this diagram as well, but I don't have any further information. Do you, Tony? Any further?
I don't, but this is not a particularly new business model. Lots of companies who develop new software like this have what's referred to as a freemium model, where they give access at one level and then paid access for another sort of level of services.
Right.
So it's a tried and trusted model, and good luck to them.
I'm keeping an eye on what this free version of this would actually check for. But anyway, let's move on to the next couple of stories. Both are again related to the area research integrity, and both are related to data seer. The first one is the announcement that KnowledgeWorks Global Limited has integrated data seer open science checks into their smart review. So quickly reading out my notes. So the benefits include faster manuscript review times and reduced manual work, and the integration supports scalability and efficiency of peer review management. So this is the first news regarding data seer. The second one is a Taylor and Francis news article. So Taylor and Francis and data seer to collaborate in data sharing compliance checks and open science metrics pilot. So I'll just quickly read out my notes. The first pilot, there are two pilots here. The first pilot focuses on automating editorial data sharing compliance checks across various journals, whereas the second pilot analyzes open science metrics across 5,000 published articles. The initiative aims to increase compliance with data sharing policies, reducing editorial workloads, and gather valuable insights into open science practices to guide future strategy. Now, there is some mention about the details of what is being checked. So they range from confirming data availability statements to checking repository use, licensing, and file formats. And the open science metrics analyzed in the second pilot include data sharing, code sharing, protocol sharing, preprint posting, and repository use. So there is more information in this, and data here involved in both. Tony, your thoughts on these stories?
Oh, I think anything that can support the process of protecting research integrity is a good thing. Data seer coming up quite a lot in the news recently. They've got some really interesting collaborations, and here are just two more examples of that.
Right. Okay, we are at the home stretch in terms of this episode. So we have two retraction related articles, both from Retraction Watch. The first one is a pretty long story, at least from my notes, which is interesting. So it is titled, After Saying It Would Retract an Article, Curious, the journal has changed its mind. So let me just quickly read the article, the notes from it. So Karen.
Yeah, no, don't read the article.
Karen Resch has had an initial concern regarding a patient in a case report from University of North Dakota authors who, as in this story is about a paper by University of North Dakota authors who failed to credit the Mayo Clinic or the person who raised the concern, that is Karen Resch, for the pathology diagnosis. Resch identified incorrect statements derived from Mayo's clinical notes and accused the authors of plagiarism. So there are two accusations. One is incorrectness and there is plagiarism. Initially, that is in May, Curious agreed to retract the articles due to concerns about plagiarism and authorship omission. But then Curious has gone back. It's retracted its retracting decision and requested investigators from both the Mayo Clinic and Sanford Oxford Health to help resolve the authorship dispute. Now, following investigations, Curious decided no further actions would be taken, concluding that plagiarism and inaccuracies lacked insufficient merit. So, I mean, what do you think, Tony? I mean, I thought that there is no concern of plagiarism in this case. Your thoughts?
No, I think this really demonstrates how seriously publishers take retractions. I mean, if a publisher retracts a paper, or if a paper is retracted from a journal, that can have fundamental impacts on career, on the literature. So I think for them to monitor and to investigate this, any sort of allegations like this is very, very important. And I think I can only applaud Curious for doing that, really, because I think it's a positive step. I can understand the frustration of the author, of the researcher, but retractions have to be seriously researched and investigated before any final decisions are made. And I think this is a good example of that.
Yeah, the original paper's author, Laura Nichols, the senior author, defended the article, stating that the patient consented for the articles and the data used from the medical chart was permissible. And that's where I am. I'm from the field of medicine. I think it's fine. However, she acknowledged the missed collaboration with the Mayo Clinic. So that is fine.
The big thing for me about this is that, if we look back, there have been a number of quite big news stories about retractions over the last couple of years, with publishers taking down 1,000, 500, 200. And every week there seems to be a new retraction paper, and I think it's absolutely critical, and even just to reinforce kind of the serious reputation that our market needs, that this is constantly monitored. And I think this is a good example of a good decision.
Yes, and as I mentioned, the second story is also about a retraction. So Springer Nature journal has retracted over 200 papers since September. So this journal, if the title is available on the screen, this journal has retracted over 200 papers since September due to issues such as compromised peer review, inappropriate citations, and AI-generated nonsensical phrases. The retractions come as part of a wider investigation initiated by whistleblower reports and ongoing integrity checks. So we have already talked about integrity checks in several previous episodes. And Chris Graff, the director of research integrity at Springer Nature in Oxford, UK, declined to share the specifics of the inquiry. And I'm quoting what he said, I quote, "We need to keep details of these investigations confidential to ensure that we do not inform the efforts of the individuals who may engage in unethical activities." So I think that is the right step. And the Guillaume Cabanach, the person, we mentioned him a lot in PubShorts in the field of research integrity. His software problematic paper scanner identified a lot of tortured phrases, and this was back in 2023. And he has then, at that point in 2023, on Twitter, or X now, x.com, in a post he said that he suspected paper mill submissions and compromised peer review. So, I mean, these people, these whistleblowers, these people who are doing sort of charity work in terms of pointing out, they're doing very good work. And 200 papers is a lot. So, Tony, Springer Nature has concerns in terms of research?
No, I just think we're in that kind of interesting middle ground between, having tools that will systematically identify things like tortured phrases before publications actually appear online. I don't think the industry is there yet in terms of having those tools, but it's not going to be very long before we're not going to see retractions like this, because the publishers will already have rooted those out before they get into peer review.
Right. And if somebody were to be, listening in for the first time and they do not understand tortured phrases, how would you define them, Tony?
Oh, gosh. It's obviously a computer-generated string of garbled nonsense. Is probably the best way I can describe it.
Yes.
It's very obvious that a human being hasn't written that phrase, because it's strung together what the AI thinks is, a sensible or a phrase that makes sense, but it doesn't.
Yes, it is a sort of poorly machine translated, machine generated paraphrased version of a phrase, which does not quite make sense because it does not, mean whatever. It's very close to it, but it's not. It's like a poor translation. Anyway, so this, the problematic paper scanner is a wonderful tool. If somebody is interested, they can check it. And that brings me to the two quick hits. And I'll start with the interesting paper, which basically states that scientific papers that mention AI get a citation boost. Now, I was not very surprised by this.
Are you surprised? No, I'm just going to say, what a surprise. Listen, I've just come back from a conference where the only thing anyone wanted to talk about was AI. I don't think I had a single conversation where we can talk about AI. point.
Yeah, so this is from Nature News. Scientific papers get a boost after they mention AI. So it is an analysis. The story is about an analysis of nearly 75 million scientific papers that mention AI terms such as machine learning, deep neural networks, and more. And these papers are more likely to be cited in the top 5%. I mean, these papers are likely to be in the top 5% most cited papers. So this
Yeah.
citation boost is not equal. Some underrepresented groups in science are there. Now, this highlights a concern that researchers may use AI to inflate citation metrics. I mean, researchers have been trying their best to use a lot of methodology to increase citation basic. Now, we have a new thing mentioning AI. So, Tony, your thoughts?
As I said, it is the topic of the day. I mean, you can't go to an event, to a conference, to a meeting without AI being absolutely top of the agenda.
Yes.
And it doesn't surprise me.
And the last quick hit is a story. It's a wonderful resource. Ithaca SR has launched a tracker to monitor licensing deals where major publishers license scholarly content to training large language models.
Yeah.
And this tracker is one of several trackers, and there is a generative AI product tracker as well. And it highlights the evolving nature of these agreements and challenges surrounding pricing, provenance, corrections, and business models. And it has a lot of information. So, I mean, I think, Tony, you've already taken a look at it. So remember the first story that we talked about, Wiley and Potato having a content licensing agreement, which was announced in October. This is what I think was announced at the Frankfurt Book Fair.
Yeah.
So it's a wonderful tool. Yeah. Go on.
Sorry, carry on. Sorry,
no, I'm just saying that Ithaca's trackers, which are freely available, I don't know who's doing all the work, wonderful work, and we constantly discuss in different scholarly communities that these are the places that you need to go to understand where we stand in the context of generative AI in terms of all the tools available out there. And this is a latest such tracker, and I think it's a wonderful initiative.
Oh, and Ithaca is a great organisation. I mean, for years they've been supporting academic communities to understand what's coming up in terms of research studies and realigning, research expectations. I think and this particular tool, if anything, is such a great resource for authors who want to understand what is it if I'm submitting a paper to a publisher. What does it actually mean? Is this a publisher that's actually taking my content seriously and therefore licensing that content so that my content has been protected in some way?
Yes.
I think this is a great resource.
Yeah, please refer to Ithaca's trackers, and that brings us to almost to the end of the show. So, Tony, I'm switching back to our videos. I know that you're going on a vacation, so we do not have a PubShorts episode planned for next week, at least one featuring you. I do not know if I have somebody else who can fill in for you, but
I'm sure it'll be better.
I don't think so, because we have a nice chemistry, it seems like. But what are your broad vacation plans, and do you have any music-related vacation plans?
I don't have any music-related vacation plans, although I am planning for a music-related trip next year. But more on that in the future episodes. And that's. But no, I've just got a week off with my wife. We was planning to spend a few days away.
Okay, great. So that is. So I wish you. I mean, all the listeners would also probably wish you the best and have a great vacation, Tony. So
thank you, listeners.
And so, Tony, if they want to find more about the show or more about you, where can they find?
Yeah, they can find me at tonyo@enago.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn at Tony O'Rourke. Just look up Tony O'Rourke Enago and I'll be there.
And you can find me on LinkedIn as well, maybe on Twitter or X if you search for my name. But more importantly, you can search for PubShorts or Trinka or Enago on any of the social media platforms. And we literally mean any, including TikTok. And if you find us there, please, subscribe to the notifications, and or if you're watching this on YouTube, please do that. If you're listening to this or watching this on LinkedIn, maybe drop us a note and let us know what you like or what you didn't like or what you would like us to cover in a future episode, and we'll do our best to take in your suggestions and modify the content appropriately. So, Tony, that brings us to the end of the show. Any parting comments?
No, it's always a pleasure, KK. I look forward to the next one.
Right. So on behalf of Tony and on all the people who support us in generating this content, this is Dr. KK signing off. This is PubShorts E09. I want to hold your hand, and I'll see you, and we will see you in the next one. Bye, Tony.
Bye. Bye, everyone.